I need you to listen very carefully because what I'm about to tell you isn't speculation. It isn't conspiracy theory. It isn't fear-mongering. It is the plain, unvarnished truth based on what I have seen, what I know, and what the church has known for centuries, but has been too cowardly to say publicly. The year 2026 will change everything, and not in the way you think. Most people are waiting for some dramatic cinematic event, a meteor, a war, a sudden collapse. But that's not how the enemy works. The devil doesn't announce his arrival with trumpets. He arrives through the back door, through the cracks you didn't seal, through the sins you didn't confess, through the compromises you justified. I've been an exorcist for years. I've sat across from people who were possessed by entities that hate you with a fury you cannot imagine. And I'm telling you, what is coming in 2026 is not merely political, not merely economic, and not merely social. It is spiritual, and it has been planned for a very long time. The signs are already here. The collapse of the family, the normalization of the unnatural, the silence of the church, the rise of technology that tracks, controls, and replaces human will. All of it has been leading to this moment. By 2026, the infrastructure of control will be complete. The spiritual degradation will reach a tipping point, and the choice that remains will be the most consequential decision every human being on this planet will ever make. You will either belong to God completely, or you will belong to the system. There will be no middle ground, no comfortable neutrality, no fence to sit on. In the next 6 parts, I'm going to walk you through exactly what is coming, why it's coming, and what you must do to survive, not physically, but spiritually. Because the body is temporary, the soul is eternal, and they are coming for your soul. Let me tell you something that most people, even good, faithful Catholics, do not understand. The greatest prison ever constructed on this earth is not made of stone. It is not made of iron bars. It has no guards standing at its gates. And yet it is more effective, more total, and more inescapable than any gulag, any concentration camp, or any dungeon ever devised by the mind of man. The invisible prison is already built. And you are already inside it. I'm not speaking metaphorically, I'm speaking literally. And by the time I finish explaining what I mean, you will understand why 2026 is the year the cell door locks permanently for those who haven't prepared. Let's start with what you carry in your pocket. Your phone. That device that you touch more times in a day than you touch a rosary, more times than you touch your own children, more times than you make the sign of the cross. That device is not a tool. It is a tether. It is a leash. And you volunteered to put it around your own neck every search you make, every location you visit, every purchase, every conversation, every image you view, every thought you type into that device. It is recorded, it is cataloged, and it is analyzed. Not by a human being, but by systems that are far more efficient than any human could ever be. Systems that are building a profile of you so detailed, so precise, that they can predict your behavior before you even decide to act. You think you're free because you can choose what app to open. You think you're free because you can choose what video to watch. But the options themselves have been curated for you. The algorithms don't show you truth. They show you what will keep you engaged, what will keep you docile, what will keep you inside the fence without ever realizing the fence exists. Now you might say, Father, I'm aware of this. I'm careful. I limit my screen time. And I would say to you, that's good, but it's not enough. Because the prison isn't just digital, it's spiritual. The devil has always understood something that most human beings refuse to accept. The easiest way to conquer a soul is not through terror. It's through comfort. It's through distraction. It's through the slow, gradual numbing of the conscience until the person can no longer distinguish right from wrong, truth from lies, reality from illusion. This is what the church fathers warned about. St. Augustine spoke of the city of man versus the city of God. The city of man builds its towers, its systems, its economies, its technologies, all of which promise salvation but deliver bondage. And every generation, the tower gets taller. The system gets more sophisticated. The chains get lighter, more comfortable, more invisible. By 2026, the digital infrastructure that has been under construction for the past 2 decades will be fully operational. Well, I'm talking about central bank digital currencies that will give the state total control over what you can buy and sell. When I'm talking about social credit systems that will determine whether you are allowed to participate in society based on your compliance with the prevailing ideology. I'm talking about health surveillance systems that will track your body, your movements, and your biological data in real time. Some of you are thinking, that's China. That can't happen here. And I'm telling you, it is already happening here. The only difference is that in the West, they're building it more slowly, more carefully, more politely. They're not slamming the door shut. They're closing it so gently that you don't even feel the draft. But by 2026, the door will be shut. Consider what happened in 2020. Within weeks, entire populations were locked down. Churches were closed. The sacraments were denied. And how did the vast majority of people respond? They complied. They obeyed. They stayed home. They watched the news. They wore the masks. They took the injections. And anyone who questioned any of it was labeled dangerous, selfish, or insane. That was a test. And the vast majority of humanity failed it. The purpose of 2020 was never about a virus. It was about proving that the infrastructure of control works. It was about demonstrating that you can shut down the entire world, shut down the Church of Jesus Christ with nothing more than fear and media coordination. And it worked beautifully, efficiently. Without a single tank rolling down a single street, by 2026, they won't need a virus. They won't need an emergency. The systems will be in place permanently, and the spiritual consequences will be catastrophic. Because here's what most people don't understand. Every system of control is ultimately a system of worship. The Bible makes this clear in the book of Revelation. The beast doesn't just demand obedience, it demands worship. And the mark of the beast isn't merely a technology. It is a spiritual allegiance that is expressed through technology. When you cannot buy or sell without submitting to a system that contradicts the natural law, that denies the authority of God, that requires you to affirm lies as truth, that is not merely economic control. That is spiritual subjugation, and the tragedy is that most people will accept it, not because they're evil, but because they're comfortable, because they're afraid, because they've been spiritually weakened by years of compromise, years of lukewarm faith, years of treating God as an option rather than the foundation of their existence. This is why I'm telling you, the invisible prison is already built. The question is not whether you're inside it, you are. The question is whether you will find the way out before the door locks in 2026. The way out is not political. The way out is not technological. The way out is spiritual. And it begins with recognizing that you are right now in a state of spiritual captivity and that the only one who can break those chains is Jesus Christ. If you want to understand what is coming in 2026, you have to understand what has already been destroyed. Because the assault that will culminate in 2026 didn't begin yesterday. It didn't begin in 2020. It began generations ago. And its primary target was always the family. The family is the most dangerous institution on earth, not to humanity, but to the enemy. Why? Because the family is where faith is transmitted. The family is where virtue is formed. The family is where a child learns that there is an authority higher than the state, a love deeper than pleasure, and a truth that exists independently of what the culture tells them. Tease the family and you destroy resistance. It is that simple. The attack on the family has been systematic, relentless, and almost entirely successful. Let me walk you through the stages. Stage 1, contraception. In 1930, the Anglican Church became the first Christian denomination to approve the use of artificial contraception. Every other Protestant denomination followed within decades. And then in 1968, when Pope Paul VI issued Humanae Vitae, reaffirming the Church's constant teaching that contraception is intrinsically evil, the world mocked him. Even Catholics mocked him. Even bishops and priests dissented. But what did Humanae Vitae predict? It predicted that widespread contraception would lead to marital infidelity. It predicted a general lowering of moral standards. It predicted that men would lose respect for women and treat them as mere instruments of selfish enjoyment. It predicted that governments would use contraception as a tool of population control. Read that document today and tell me, was he wrong? Every single prediction came true. And yet the church, the very institution that had the truth, failed to enforce it, failed to teach it, failed to defend it. The faithful were left defenseless. Stage 2, no-fault divorce. Beginning in the late 1960s, divorce laws were liberalized across the Western world. The result was catastrophic. Millions of children grew up without fathers. The psychological, emotional, and spiritual damage is incalculable. And yet, how many priests stood at the pulpit and condemned it? How many bishops used their authority to fight it? The silence was deafening. Stage 3, the sexual revolution. What began as an appeal to freedom became a culture of pornography, promiscuity, and the commodification of the human body. The dignity of the human person, made in the image and likeness of God, was replaced by the lie that human beings are defined by their desires, and that any restriction on those desires is oppression. Stage 4, the redefinition of marriage. When the Supreme Court legalized so-called same-sex marriage in 2015, it was not merely a legal decision. It was a metaphysical declaration. The state was asserting that it had the authority to redefine reality itself, to declare that the union of a man and a woman is interchangeable with the union of two men or two women. This is not merely a policy disagreement. This is a claim that reality is whatever the state says it is. And once you accept that premise, there is no limit to what the state can redefine. Stage 5, the attack on children. And now we have arrived at the most diabolical stage of all. The gender ideology that is being imposed on children, the idea that a child can choose their sex, that a child should be given puberty blockers, that a child should be mutilated in the name of affirmation, this is not merely wrong. It is demonic. I want to be very clear about what I'm saying. I'm not using the word demonic as a metaphor. I'm using it literally. The confusion about human identity, the denial of biological reality, the destruction of the innocence of children, these are the marks of demonic influence. The devil is the father of lies. And the lie that a man can become a woman or a woman can become a man is one of the most fundamental lies ever told. It strikes at the very heart of God's creation. Male and female, He created them. By 2026, this ideology will not merely be tolerated, it will be mandatory. Already in many countries, you can be fined, fired, or imprisoned for refusing to use someone's preferred pronouns. Already, parents are losing custody of their children for refusing to affirm a gender identity that contradicts biological reality. Already, medical professionals are being punished for refusing to participate in procedures they know are harmful. This is not progress. This is not compassion. This is tyranny dressed in the language of tolerance. When the family, the one institution that could resist this, has been so weakened, so fractured, so confused that it no longer has the capacity to fight. That was the plan all along. You cannot understand 2026 without understanding this. The war was already won before most people realized it had started. The family was the first battlefield, and the family was defeated, not because the enemy was stronger, but because the defenders abandoned their posts. The bishops were silent. The priests were cowardly. The parents were distracted. When the children were sacrificed, if you want to rebuild before 2026, you must start with the family. You must reclaim the truth about marriage, about sexuality, about the dignity of the human person. You must teach your children the faith, not a watered-down, accommodationist, feel-good version of the faith, but the full, unvarnished, uncompromising Catholic faith. Because when the system comes for your children, and the only thing that will protect them is a faith that is stronger than the culture. Now, I need to say something that will make many people uncomfortable, but I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to tell you the truth. The greatest obstacle to spiritual resistance in 2026 is not the government. It is not the media. It is not the tech companies. The greatest obstacle is the cowardice of the church herself. Let me be specific. For decades, the Catholic Church, the very institution founded by Jesus Christ to be the pillar and bulwark of truth, has been complicit in the very evils she was established to oppose. I'm not talking about the church in the abstract. I'm talking about the bishops, the priests, the religious, and the lay leaders who have been entrusted with the care of souls and who have, in many cases, betrayed that trust catastrophically. When contraception was normalized, where were the bishops? When divorce was liberalized, where were the bishops? When pornography became a multi-billion-dollar industry that destroyed millions of souls, where were the bishops? When abortion claimed the lives of over 1 billion children worldwide, where were the bishops? Yes, there were statements, there were documents, there were occasional pronouncements. But where was the enforcement? Where was the discipline? Where was the willingness to stand at the pulpit and say, if you support abortion, if you use contraception, if you live in a state of mortal sin, you may not receive Holy Communion. Instead, what we got was accompaniment, dialogue, encounter, pastoral sensitivity. And while the church was busy being sensitive, the culture was busy going to hell. I want to tell you something from my experience as an exorcist. The demons are not sensitive. The demons are not accommodating. The demons do not care about your feelings. They want your soul, and they will use every weakness, every compromise, every failure of the church to get it. And the church has given them plenty to work with. Consider the abuse scandals. Thousands of children were violated by priests. Men who were supposed to be alter Christus, another Christ, and the response of the hierarchy was to cover it up, to move the offenders, to protect the institution at the expense of the victims. This was not merely a failure of management. This was a moral catastrophe that has destroyed the credibility of the church in the eyes of millions, and it gets worse. In recent years, we have seen the active promotion of clergy who publicly contradict church teaching. We have seen bishops who bless same-sex unions. We have seen cardinals who deny the existence of hell. We have seen a papacy that has sown unprecedented confusion through ambiguous statements, controversial appointments, and a systematic unwillingness to clarify doctrinal errors. I am not going to sit here and tell you that the Pope is the Antichrist. He's not. But I will tell you this. The confusion that has emanated from the highest levels of the church in recent years is not accidental. It is either gross incompetence or it is deliberate. And neither option is comforting. The result of this confusion is that the faithful have been left without clear guidance at precisely the moment when they need it most. When the culture is demanding that you affirm lies, when the government is demanding that you submit to unjust laws, when the world is demanding that you sacrifice your children on the altar of ideology, where is the church? In many cases, the church is on the wrong side. Catholic schools are implementing gender policies. Catholic hospitals are performing procedures that contradict the natural law. Catholic charities are distributing contraception. Catholic politicians who support abortion are receiving Holy Communion without consequence. This is not the church that the martyrs died for. This is not the church that the apostles built. This is a counterfeit, a pale, weak, compromised imitation that offers comfort without truth and acceptance without conversion. And by 2026, this betrayal will reach its culmination. The pressure on the church to conform to the world's agenda will become unbearable. There will be attempts to change church teaching on sexual morality, on the priesthood, on the nature of the sacraments. There will be increasing collaboration between church leaders and secular authorities. And the faithful will be told that obedience to the state is a form of charity. I'm telling you now, when that moment comes, you must obey God rather than men, even if the bishop tells you to comply, or even if the priest tells you to submit, even if the Pope himself tells you to accept something that contradicts the constant teaching of the church, because the church is not the hierarchy. The church is the body of Christ. And the body of Christ cannot contradict herself. When the hierarchy contradicts the church's own teaching, it is the hierarchy that is in error, not the teaching. You must cling to the faith of the apostles, the faith of the martyrs, the faith of the saints. That faith is unchanging. That faith is your anchor in the storm that is coming. And the storm is coming in 2026. Now, I'm going to talk about the specific technologies that will be used to enforce the system of control that will be fully operational by 2026. And I need you to understand something at the outset. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I am a priest and an exorcist. I deal in reality, spiritual reality, which is the most real thing there is. But the technologies I'm about to describe are not spiritual. They are physical, they are documented, and they are already in use, central bank digital currencies. By 2026, most major economies will have implemented or be in the process of implementing CBDCs. This is not speculation, it is publicly stated policy by central banks around the world, including the Federal Reserve. A CBDC is not like the money in your bank account, it is programmable. The issuer, the government, the central bank, can determine what you can spend it on, where you can spend it, when you can spend it. If the government decides that you may not purchase firearms, your digital wallet will simply not process the transaction. If the government decides that you may not travel beyond a certain radius, your digital currency will not work outside that zone. If the government decides that you have not complied with a health mandate, your access to your own money can be suspended with the click of a button. This is not theoretical. China has already implemented a version of this. Canada froze the bank accounts of truckers who protested vaccine mandates in 2022. The technology exists, the political will exists, and by 2026, the infrastructure will be complete. Digital identity. The United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and numerous governments have openly advocated for a universal digital identity system, a single centralized record that encompasses your biometric data, your health records, your financial history, your social media activity, and your legal status. This digital identity will be required to access services, healthcare, education, employment, banking, travel. Without it, you will effectively cease to exist in the eyes of the system biometric surveillance. Facial recognition technology is already deployed in cities around the world. By 2026, we will be ubiquitous, combined with artificial intelligence that can analyze your behavior, your expressions, your vital signs through your devices. The system will know where you are, what you're doing, what you're feeling at all times, artificial intelligence. AI is not merely a tool. It is a decision-making system that is increasingly being placed in positions of authority over human beings. AI is already being used to determine creditworthiness, to screen job applicants, to diagnose medical conditions, and to moderate speech on digital platforms. By 2026, AI will be embedded in virtually every system that governs daily life. And the critical thing to understand is this: AI is not neutral. It reflects the values and priorities of those who build and control it. And those who control it are not friends of God. Now, here is where it becomes spiritual. Many people will look at these technologies and see only convenience, efficiency, and safety. They will accept CBDCs because they're easier than cash. They will accept digital identity because it streamlines access to services. They will accept surveillance because it promises security. They will accept AI because it makes life more convenient. But each of these technologies represents a transfer of freedom from the individual to the system. And each acceptance is a small act of worship, a bowing of the knee to the God of this world. Where the book of Revelation describes a beast that forces all people to receive a mark on their right hand or forehead without which they cannot buy or sell. For centuries, Christians wondered what this mark would be. We no longer have to wonder. The technology for such a system now exists. And it is being built. I am not saying that CBDCs are the mark of the beast. I am saying that they are the infrastructure that could support such a system. And the spiritual dynamic is identical, conformity to the system as the condition of participation in the economy. By 2026, the convergence of these technologies will create a situation in which non-compliance is not merely inconvenient, it is existential. You will not be able to feed your family, access health care, or maintain employment without submitting to the system. And the system will require you to affirm things that are contrary to the natural law and to the faith. This is the choice that is coming. This is the choice that will define 2026. And most people will make it without even realizing what they're choosing, everything I've described so far. The invisible prison, the destruction of the family, or the betrayal of the church, the technology of control, all of it is real. All of it is documented. All of it is verifiable by anyone willing to look. But all of it is secondary. The primary reality is spiritual. And until you understand that, you will not understand 2026. There is a war being waged right now, not between nations, not between political parties, not between economic systems, but between the forces of heaven and the forces of hell. And this war has been going on since before the creation of man. The devil is real. Hell is real. Demons are real. These are not medieval superstitions. These are ontological realities that the church has always taught and that I have encountered personally in my ministry. What is happening in the world right now, the chaos, the confusion, the violence, the perversion, the apostasy, is not merely the result of human folly. It is the result of demonic influence operating through human agents and human institutions. Let me explain how this works. The devil cannot force you to sin. He cannot override your free will. What he can do, and what he does with extraordinary effectiveness, is influence your thinking, your desires, and your perception of reality. He does this through suggestion, through temptation, through the creation of cultural environments that make sin appear normal and virtue appear pathological. As Thomas Aquinas taught that the primary mode of demonic influence is through the imagination. The devil presents an image, a thought, a desire, and if the person consents to it, The foothold is established. Once the foothold is established, the influence deepens. The person begins to think of the sin as normal, then as desirable, then as essential to their identity. At that point, the person is no longer merely tempted. They are possessed by an idea. Now, look at the culture around you. Look at how quickly entire populations have adopted ideas that would have been considered insane just a generation ago. Men can become women. Marriage can be between any number of people. Children can choose their gender. The family is oppressive. Religion is dangerous. Authority is illegitimate unless it conforms to the current ideology. These ideas did not emerge organically. They were planted, they were nurtured. They were promoted through every channel of cultural influence: education, entertainment, media, technology, corporate policy, and government mandate. And they are demonic in their origin and their effect. The goal of the demonic influence is not merely to make people sin. It is to make them incapable of recognizing truth. It is to so thoroughly distort their perception of reality that they become spiritually blind, unable to see God, unable to hear His voice, unable to respond to His grace. This is what St. Paul meant when he spoke of the God of this world who has blinded the minds of the unbelievers. This is not a metaphor. It is a description of a spiritual operation that is as real as the device you're holding in your hand. By 2026, this spiritual blindness will reach unprecedented levels. The convergence of technological control, cultural degradation, and ecclesial confusion will create an environment in which the truth is not merely suppressed. It is incomprehensible to the majority of people. They will not be able to see it. They will not be able to hear it. They will not be able to understand it. This is the most terrifying aspect of what is coming. Not the technology, not the economic control, not the political tyranny, but the spiritual blindness that will cause millions of souls to walk willingly into their own destruction. And the only defense against spiritual blindness is spiritual sight, which comes through grace, through prayer, through the sacraments, and through a life of rigorous, uncompromising holiness. You've heard what I have to say about the invisible prison, the destruction of the family, or the betrayal of the church, the technology of control, and the spiritual reality behind it all. Now the question is, what are you going to do about it? I'm going to give you specific practical instructions, not suggestions, not recommendations, instructions. Because the time for optional Catholicism is over. First, return to the sacraments. If you are not in a state of sanctifying grace, you are spiritually defenseless. Go to confession. Make a thorough, honest, complete confession of every mortal sin you have committed. Do not hold back. Do not rationalize. Do not excuse. Confess it all. Receive absolution and do the penance. Then go to Mass. Not once a month, every Sunday at minimum. And if possible, go during the week. The Eucharist is the source and summit of the Christian life. Without it, you will not have the strength to resist what is coming. Second, pray the rosary every day, not occasionally, not when you feel like it, every single day. Our Lady of Fatima told the children that the rosary is the weapon for these times. She was not speaking figuratively. In my experience as an exorcist, there is nothing the demons fear more than the rosary prayed with faith and devotion. Pray it with your family. Pray it alone if you must, but pray it third, fast. The Church's tradition of fasting has been almost entirely abandoned in the modern world, and this is not coincidental. Fasting weakens the hold of the flesh, strengthens the spirit, and is a powerful weapon against demonic influence. Our Lord Himself said that certain demons can only be cast out by prayer and fasting. Fast on the traditional days, Wednesday and Friday. Give up something substantial. Train your body to obey your will rather than the other way around. Fourth, build community. You cannot survive what is coming alone. The system is designed to isolate individuals so that they can be controlled. You need a community of like-minded, faithful Catholics who share your convictions and will support you when the pressure comes. This means a real community, people you see face to face, people you can trust with your life, people who will stand with you when standing costs something. Fifth, get out of the system as much as possible. Reduce your dependence on digital technology. Use cash whenever possible. Grow food if you can. Learn skills that make you self-reliant. Reduce your debt. Get your children out of schools that teach demonic ideologies. The more entangled you are in the system, the more vulnerable you are to its control. Sixth, accept suffering. This is the hardest instruction, but it is the most important. The time is coming when fidelity to Christ will cost you something real. Your job, your reputation, your comfort, maybe even your freedom. You must be prepared for this. You must accept it in advance. The martyrs did not go to their deaths because they enjoyed suffering. They went because they loved Christ more than they loved their own lives. And the same choice will be presented to you. 2026 will change everything. But it does not have to change you. Not if you are rooted in Christ, armed with the sacraments, fortified by prayer, and sustained by the truth. The storm is coming. The house that is built on sand will fall. The house that is built on rock will stand. Build your house on the rock, Jesus Christ, and no power in hell or on earth will prevail against it. God bless you. Stay faithful. Stay strong. And do not be afraid, for the one who is in you is greater than the one who is in the world.